Welcome to the Thesis and Dissertation Formatting webinar presented by the Graduate School at UTSA. My name is Lauren Beaver. I am the Thesis and Dissertation Officer in the Graduate School. This presentation today is going to cover 4 different main areas about formatting your thesis or dissertation. The first part is the first steps: deadlines, registration, different writing styles. Then part 2 is the bulk of our presentation. This will be formatting your document. That includes a review of our template as well as some other technical aspects of formatting such as your margins, your fonts, etc. After that, we'll discuss your preliminary draft and your final submission requirements. Before we get going, I would like to draw your attention to the Thesis and Dissertation webpage. All of the information that we discuss in the webinar today will be available on our website. The most important thing is that you can log on to our website and you can access our formatting template. The template will help you tremendously with your formatting. In addition, you can also find our preparation guidelines and frequently asked questions documents, as well as information on deadlines, the preliminary draft process, and the final requirements. I encourage all of you to please visit our website, look over the information, download what you need, and make sure that you make yourself familiar with all of the information posted online. So for your first steps, one of the first things that you need to know about are your semester deadlines. The first deadline that comes up every semester is your application for graduation deadline. That is the last day that you can apply for graduation on ASAP. This is not a deadline that is administered by our office, but it is administered by graduation coordination in the registrar's office. The deadline every semester is posted on the academic calendar or on the registrar's website, so you can always find it pretty easily. The next deadline that comes up is the preliminary draft deadline, and that's the first deadline from the graduate school. This is the deadline to submit a preliminary draft to the graduate school for a formatting review. It is very, very strongly recommended that all students turn in a preliminary draft so that we can review your formatting and see if we can find any errors. The deadlines for the preliminary draft are posted on the graduate school website, and they are posted every semester, usually a couple semesters in advance. And then the next deadline is the final deadline. This is the day that all final requirements are due to the graduate school by 5 p.m. if you are graduating in the semester. Again, just like the preliminary draft deadline, these are posted on our website. The final draft deadline is firm. Okay, now another thing that you need to be aware of when you are preparing to work on your thesis and dissertation is when should you be registered and what should you register for. So these are passages from the graduate catalog about enrolling in thesis hours or in dissertation hours. Basically what they say is that any student who's receiving advice or assistance from a faculty member who is being supervised by a thesis or dissertation committee or who uses university resources is required to enroll in the appropriate thesis or dissertation course. So even if you have already completed the required number of thesis or dissertation hours, if you are still working on your document, you need to go ahead and enroll in thesis or dissertation hours again. You have to be enrolled in any semester that you work on your document or receive assistance, including the semester that you submit your document to the graduate school. Another thing that you should know about before you get started are your writing styles. These are just some of the writing styles. There are a lot of different ones out there, so by all means these are not the only writing styles. Each program, depending on which program you're in, uses its own different writing styles. So some of you will be using APA, some of you will be using MLA, some will be using other writing styles. With the required formatting for your thesis or dissertation, you do have to walk kind of a fine line in balancing using your writing style and following our required formatting. We do try to be very specific about when you should use your writing style and when our requirements will override that. Usually it's stated in the template when you need to go ahead and just follow our writing or our required formatting and when you can go ahead and defer to your writing style. If you are not sure which writing style you should be using, you should ask your supervising professor. The graduate school does not check your writing style. That's something that your committee does. So, if your committee is not sure which writing style you should be using, Or let's say you are in one of those few programs that does not have a writing style assigned to it officially. Another option is to use the Turabian Manual for Writers. This is a good one, especially if you don't have a writing style assigned to your program. You can visit the UTSA Library website for more information on writing styles or on the Turabian Manual for Writers. The formatting that our office, the graduate school, does check is our required formatting, and we have templates available for you to download and use to help you make sure that you have formatted your document correctly. Right now they are available in both Word document format and also in LaTeX format for those of you who are using LaTeX. Within your document, the template does have a specific order of pages, and the reason for that is that the order of pages is mandatory. So the order that the template appears in is the order that your document needs to appear in. Now, for example, some writing styles vary a little bit from what we require. The good example is that APA usually asks for your appendices to come at the very end of your document after everything else. However, our required formatting says the appendices come here before the references, and that is mandatory. So as it states on the screen, this is the mandatory order of pages. Do not change the order in which your pages appear. Our required formatting overrides other writing styles with this. We are going to go over each of the pages that you see listed here, and we will be taking a look at the template so that you can see exactly what you'll need to do for each page. So the first one that comes up is the fly page. This is the very first page of your document, and it's super easy to format because it is a blank page. The fly page is just used by the UTSA library for binding. So on the template you'll see that it has some red text printed on it. Whenever you see red text in our template, for example right here, here's an image of the first page, the red text is instructional text and it can be deleted before you print your final copies. Up next after the fly page is the signature page. This is a very important page. Since it has the signatures of your committees on it, everything needs to be formatted perfectly on this page before you get the committee member signatures. If there is an error in formatting on this page and you've already gotten signatures, we will ask you to go back and redo your page, and you will have to go get those signatures again. So that's why it's really important to make sure you get this page formatted correctly. To start with, up the top, the title is centered, bold, all capital letters, and double-spaced. If your title is more than one line long, it will be in the shape of an inverted pyramid or basically an upside-down triangle. Down here in your signature block, names should be typed under the line, and it will appear as John Smith, PhD, not Dr. John Smith. Remember that when you do get your committee members to sign this page, all signatures need to be original. So no photocopies, no scans, original signatures only on these signature pages. The first signature line is for the chair of your committee, not the chair of your department. So if you happen to have two chairs, then you will have two lines. So the first line will be, say, John Smith, PhD chair or co-chair. And the second line will be Jane Doe, PhD, co-chair. So if you have two chairs, they are both listed as co-chair. And then down here at the bottom, you'll notice it does not say first name, last name right here, and that is because you will not add a name to the Dean Graduate School line. It should just say Dean Graduate School, just like this, so don't change it. And last but not least, please note that there is no page number at the bottom of the page. This one is not numbered. After the signature page is the copyright. The copyright is optional. If you choose to purchase the copyright, it will be purchased through ProQuest, which we will be discussing later in this presentation. If you do purchase the copyright, this page needs to appear in your document. There is, again, no page number on the page, so don't type a page number at the bottom center. If you choose not to purchase the copyright, delete this page entirely from your document. Don't leave a blank page in its space. Just delete the entire thing. After that comes the dedication. This is another optional page. If you would like to include a dedication, it should be single-spaced and italicized. It should be no more than 7 to 10 lines long. This is a place to dedicate your document to family, friends, You can dedicate it to really whoever you want. We see a lot of students dedicate it to spouses, to parents, things like that. Just like the previous pages, there is no page number typed on the bottom of the page, and since it is an optional page, if you choose not to include a dedication, please delete this page from the document. The next page is the title page. This is another very important page. You can see just by giving it a quick glance that there is a lot of different kind of spacing on this page, and so it is a page where we commonly see errors. Make sure that you get the formatting on this page correct. That's why I'm here. I'll help you review it to make sure it's okay when you turn in your preliminary draft. But it does state a lot of information about your document itself and the degree that you are pursuing. So make sure that you refer to the template for correct spacing when you set up your title page. Just like the signature page, up at the top, your title will appear in bold, all capital letters, double-spaced, centered, and then if it's more than one line long, the inverted pyramid. Basically make it look exactly like it does on your signature page. Down here you will put your name in all capital letters, followed by your previous degree. So if you're getting a master's degree, most often this is your bachelor's degree. If you're getting a doctoral degree, most of the time it's your master's, though some of you may have gone in directly from your bachelor's. Make sure you just put the abbreviation, so for example BA, MA, MS, but not what it was actually in. So for example, you don't need to say your name BA in history, just BA is fine. Then make sure that down here, copy this text exactly as it is in your document or in the template. It will either say thesis or dissertation depending on which document you're working on. The name of your degree should match how it is worded in the catalog. So for example, Master of Science in Chemistry, not Masters in Chemistry. Then down here, leave some more space, and when we get to the bottom of the page, you'll have the University of Texas at San Antonio, the name of your college, so for example, College of Engineering, College of Sciences, College of Liberal and Fine Arts, College of Business, etc. Then the name of your department. Make sure again that your department is correct. A lot of students have errors on this, so double check the name of your department. And then the month and year that your degree is awarded. So this is the month and year that you graduate, not the month and year that you defend. So your examples are always May, August, or December, followed by the year. Even if, let's say, you're graduating in a spring semester and you defend your document in March, you won't put March. You will still say May because May is the month that you graduate. The same thing for every other semester. Next after that comes your acknowledgments page. The acknowledgments page is for recognition and acknowledgement of professional or financial assistance on your document. This is a good place to thank your committee members, to acknowledge any fellowships, stipends, grants that you worked with. Make sure that the title up at the top is bold, all capital letters, and centered. Down here at the bottom, you are going to again put the month and year of your graduation centered over the page number. This is the first page with the page number. It should be a lowercase Roman numeral, and depending on whether or not you included copyright or dedication, it will be page 2, 3, or 4. It will never be page 1. Now, with the acknowledgments, I would like to point out that as of the spring 2013 semester, the length limit for the acknowledgments has increased to 3 pages. It used to just be 1 page, so now you have plenty of room to make sure that you're able to thank or acknowledge anyone that you need to. If you happen to use 2 or 3 pages for your acknowledgments, this date down here at the bottom will appear above the page number on the last page of your acknowledgments. It does not have to appear on all 3 pages, just on the last one. And that's only if you go over 1 page of acknowledgments. After the acknowledgments comes the abstract. The abstract, just like the signature and title page, should have the title of your thesis or dissertation in bold, all capital letters, centered. Make sure it's double-spaced, and then inverted pyramid if more than 1 line long. So again, that upside-down triangle, just make it look like it did on the signature and title page. Under that, you will put your name followed by the degree you are currently working on. So remember, the title page listed your previous degree. This one is your current degree, so your master's degree or your doctoral degree. Again, just use the abbreviation, so MA, MS, PhD, EDD, but not actually listing what it is in. So not MA in history, but just MA. Under that, You'll put the University of Texas at San Antonio followed by the year that you graduate. Skip a line and then include your supervising professor. Again, first name, last name, PhD, so John Smith, PhD. If you happen to have co-chairs, then you will list them as supervising professors and both names. Then when you actually get to the text of your abstract, the abstract is a concise summary of your research. It should be no more than 250 words or approximately 1.5 pages double-spaced. Please note that we are continuing with the page numbering. You are still using lowercase Roman numerals down here at the bottom center of the page. Next up is the table of contents. Table of contents, make sure that your titles appear exactly as they do in your text. You start with the acknowledgments, then the abstract, list of tables, list of figures. You will note that we do not include an entry for the table of contents itself. We also do not include entries for the signature page, the copyright, or the dedication, or the title page. You won't start listing things until the acknowledgments. Make sure that your table of contents is not entirely single-spaced. There needs to be a space between each entry. On each entry, you will include leader dots between the title and the page number. This is built into the template. You should be able to just type in your title, hit the tab button, and it will fill in these dots all the way over to the right. Alternately, you can use an automatic table of contents to enter this information, but make sure that you adjust the formatting so that it looks like it does in the template. Speaking of the leader dots, please notice that the Vita does not have leader dots or a page number after it. It is the only entry that won't, and it will just sit down here by itself. It is correct that it does not have leader dots or a page number. When it comes to subtitles, if you would like to include subtitles, you can. Here's an example of how to include them. You indent them so that they fall underneath the chapter. Please remember that you need to be consistent with your inclusion of subtitles. So if you include one subtitle, you need to include all subtitles, which means that you cannot include subtitles for one chapter only. You need to include all subtitles in the document. However, it is perfectly acceptable to not include the subtitles if you would prefer not to. After that comes your list of tables. The list of tables begins on a new page, so don't include it immediately after the table of contents. Start it at the top of a new page. This is required if tables appear in your document. Even if you only have one table, you have to include a list of tables in your document. They should be numbered and titled according to your writing style, but follow our basic formatting for the list of tables. Include table, the number, hit tab, and then put in the title, leader dots, and the page number. If you have a table title that is long and extends onto more than one line, you can either single space it or double space it, and it should be indented. So here's a good example of that. List of figures. This follows the same formatting as the list of tables. Just like with the list of figures, it is required if any figures appear in your document, even if it's just one figure, and you can follow the same formatting as before. All right, so now we have hit the actual body of your text. So this is where your text actually starts. What you need to remember is that every chapter must begin on a new page, so they can't just continue one after the other, always started on the top of a new page. Your chapter title should be centered, bold, and all capital letters. And then within your document, for subtitles, for citations, things like that, you will follow your writing style. Please note that the first page of your text begins on page 1. We're no longer using the Roman numerals. Let me go back for a second to the list of figures. You'll see that this was the last one with a Roman numeral page number. And once you get here, it starts on page 1 with Arabic numerals. These page numbers will continue all the way through the rest of the document until we get to the Vita. Page numbers also, make sure they are in the bottom center of the page, regardless of what your writing style says. They will always be at the bottom center of the page. I already mentioned this briefly, but subtitles are going to be formatted according to your writing style. This is just an example of one type of acceptable subtitle. You can see it's bold and centered. However, in the red instructional text, you can see that depending on your writing style, subtitles may be centered, left justified, numbered, lettered, etc. So if you're unsure how to format your subtitles, please do refer to your style guide for your writing style or ask your supervising professor. Here's an example of a table. Regardless of your writing style, your tables are always labeled above the table. So here's the table. The title comes up here. It will never appear below the table. For the actual appearance of your tables, how to number them, etc., that you will refer to your writing style. Just make sure that the table title is above the table. You can either single space or double space table titles. Chapter 2, please note that the chapter began on a new page like we discussed previously. Here's an example of a figure. Figures, unlike tables, are labeled below. Again, regardless of your writing style, the figure label will appear down here. Depending on your writing style, you can left justify the figures or you can center them. Either one is fine. Just be consistent with it throughout your document. And then, just like with the tables, for the appearance of your figures, how to number them, etc., go ahead and refer to your writing style. Once you have finished your text, if you have any appendices, they will come next, immediately after your final chapter. The appendix or appendices, if you have more than one, this material should be materials that are peripheral but relevant to the main text. So students often include survey material or, say, computer code, things like that, things that are important but do not belong in the main text of your document. Some of you may have approval letters from the IRB for your study. If you do have an approval letter or approval memo, it must appear in your document in an appendix. So for those of you who have approval letters from the IRB, the appendix will be required for you. If you need more information on IRB approval or how to include it in your document, please go ahead and refer to the preparation guidelines document that you can download on our website, and also to the frequently asked questions document. Next up comes your references. So for those of you who typically put your appendices at the very end of your document, please note that the references come after the appendices. You can alternately call these works cited or bibliography, depending on what your writing style prefers. And then other than that, you will format your references according to your writing style. Make sure that you refer to your writing style for how to format and cite your references. What we look for is that your references need to either be completely double-spaced, or you can single-space each entry as long as there is a space in between each one. So what you can't do is single-space the entire references where there's no space in between the entries. If you have questions about that, feel free to email me on how to do the spacing on your references, but basically just remember either double space or add a space between each single-spaced entry. The last page of your document is the vita. The vita is required for everyone. It is a short biographical summary of yourself. It's not a curriculum vita, so please remember that keep it short and sweet. What I tell students is that it's like when you read a novel and you get to the last page of the book and there's that little blurb about the author. That's what you're writing about yourself, except you're keeping it pretty academic. So you want to write it in third person. For example, he studied or she researched, not I studied, I researched, my study, etc. So he did this, she did that. Do not include contact information, so no phone numbers, no addresses, no emails. Please also do not include resumes or a list of publications. Your document will be archived in the library, and 10 or 20 years from now, phone numbers, emails, resumes, publications, all of that will be out of date. So keep this as a brief paragraph about yourself. I'll show you an example of a good one in just a second. But before we get there, I would like you to pay attention to this. There is no page number on the vita page. Your references, let's go back to it really fast. Your references are still using Arabic numeral page numbers. You started on page 1 and you continued all the way through your references. But the last page of your references is the last page with the page number. Once you get to the vita, no page number. Now here's an example of a short but sweet vita. Jane Doe is from San Antonio, Texas. She studied higher education administration and earned both a bachelor's and a master's degree in education from the University of Texas at San Antonio. Her future plans include attending a PhD program. So you can see that Jane happened to keep this in third person. She did this, she did that. Instead of saying I studied, she kept it about her academic history. and she did what most students do, which is to say where they came from, where they earned their degrees, and what their future plans are. The other thing that you should note with the Vita is that there is a length limit of 1 page. So, like I said, keep it short. If you go over 1 page, you'll be asked to edit it to shorten it. Okay, so that's the end of the template. There are a couple other technical aspects for your formatting that you should keep in mind. The first one are your margins. Margins need to be set at the following values. So the top margin and the left margin should be set at 1.25 inches. The bottom and the right margin should be set at 0.75 inches. This is required for all documents, regardless of your writing style. The reason that the top and left margins are slightly larger, again, this has to do with the fact that the library will bind your document. They need a little bit of extra space on the top and the left. Even if you use the template, you are encouraged to always double check your margins, especially if you're using Microsoft Word. Microsoft Word does like to reset the margins sometimes, so make sure that you print off a page and just double check them, make sure that your margins are showing up correctly. Spacing. As you'll recall, the signature and title pages are very specific on what should appear where, what's single-spaced, what's double-spaced, etc. So make sure that you refer to the template for pages like that. For the manuscript of your document, it needs to be double-spaced or 1.5 spaced throughout the document. Be consistent. Most students use double spacing because it's pretty standard. So you can see here, this is double-spaced, this is 1.5 spaced, this is single-spaced. Single spacing is only acceptable in certain parts of your document. Those parts include pages or items such as quotations, footnotes, or lengthy tables. For example, if you have a long table that only goes 1 or 2 lines onto a second page, you can single space it to bring that table up to 1 page. Other parts that can be single spaced are entries in the bibliography, as long as you put a space in between each entry. The same goes for endnotes. For example, if you include an endnote section, format it with single-spaced entries and a space in between. The table of contents, the list of tables, and the list of figures. Those are the only places where you can use single spacing. So remember, up here, quotes, footnotes, and long tables can be single-spaced. These entries can be single-spaced as long as there's a space between each entry. Otherwise, double spacing is what you want to use. Like I said, double spacing is pretty standard, and that is what most students choose to use. Be consistent with it. So, if chapter 1 is double spaced, don't put chapter 2 in 1.5 spacing. Make sure that that is also double spaced so you're consistent through your document. For your fonts, you want to use Times New Roman or Arial. Those are standard fonts. Remember that it is a professional document, so we need to use a standard font. Decorative fonts like script fonts, wingdings, webdings, all of that, those are not acceptable for this document. Your font size should be in 12 point. Optionally, you can use 14-point fonts for headings or titles if you would like to. You're not required to. Table and figure labels can also optionally be 10 points, but be consistent. If one table label is at 10 point, all of your table headings and all of your figure headings need to be in 10 points. So it all has to match. And then lastly, footnotes can be in 10-point font as well. The easiest thing to do is just to make everything in your document 12 point. That way you don't have to worry about it and say, well, I put this heading in 14, are all of my headings in 14? Or I put this one table label in 10, are all of them in 10? You can just be consistent that way. Put everything in 12. Tables and figures we've discussed a little bit. They are 2 distinct items. Because they are 2 distinct items, they are labeled differently. So as you'll recall from our review of the template, tables are labeled above, figures are labeled below. Here is an example of each one. Remember, tables above, figures below, regardless of writing style. In addition, sometimes you will have tables or figures that continue on to more than 1 page. When that happens, you do have to label the subsequent pages as continued. So for tables, since the label goes above, you'll say Table 1, including the title on the first page, and on the next page you'll say Table 1 continued. And you can do that for every subsequent page that the table continues onto. With figures, since the figure is labeled below, On the first page, you will put the main figure label here, and on the next page, you'll put figure 1 continued. And just like with the tables, continue that on every subsequent page. Page numbers, we discussed this when we went over the template, but here's a good quick review of it. Remember that the fly page, signature page, copyright, dedication, and title pages do not have page numbers. Now, some of these say they're not counted, and some do say they are counted. What that means is that the fly page and the signature page do not count towards the total page count of your document. If you include the copyright and dedication, they will count, just like the title page will count. And then when we get to the acknowledgments, you start with your Roman numerals. This is where counting versus not counting comes into play, and why your acknowledgments will either be 2, 3, or 4. If you have not included the copyright or dedication, the title page is counted, which makes this page 2. If you include the title and the dedication, it becomes 3. If you include all of these, it becomes 4. Our template has it built in to start on page 4, so just make sure you double check. If you do not include one of those, lower your page number. Just make sure it never starts on 1. So with the lowercase Roman numeral page numbers, the acknowledgments, abstract, table of contents, list of tables, and list of figures will all have lowercase Roman numeral page numbers in the bottom center. When you switch over to Arabic numerals, that will be the body of your manuscript. So basically the first page of your text begins on page 1. So chapter 1 or your preface, anything like that, always starts on page 1. Even if your list of figures ends on page Roman numeral 16, the body of your manuscript starts on page 1. You'll continue these Arabic numeral page numbers all the way through your endnotes if you include them, appendices if included, and your references. And then the Vita has no page number. So remember that the last page of your references is the last page with the page number. The other thing to remember is that all page numbers are going to be at the bottom center of your page regardless of your writing style. If they are printed anywhere else on the page, for example in the top right or left corner, we will ask you to move them. They have to be bottom center. So here are some typical questions that we receive about page numbers. The most common question is, how do I remove the page number from my Vita page? Now, the frequently asked questions document has full instructions for how to do this. But the brief overview is that you need to click on the bottom of the page prior to the Vita. Then you will go to the Page Layout tab, click on Section Breaks, and then do section breaks on the next page. Double-click on the footer of the Vita after you've done that, and then it should automatically open up the Header and Footer Tools menu. In that menu, you will turn off the button that says Link to Previous. Word defaults to having this turned on. You need to turn it off. And once you've done that, you can delete the Vita page number. So remember, that's just a very brief overview of how to remove the Vita page number in Word. If you need more detailed instructions, they are in the frequently asked questions document, which you can download on our website. Another common question has to do with landscape pages. So if you are including landscape pages, please keep in mind that Word places them incorrectly on your document, because on your screen, Word views your landscape page this way, and it sees this as the bottom center of the page, so it places your page number there automatically. However, this creates a problem when you print off your document and stack up your paper to bind or to bring in your final copies. You'll notice that now your page number is up here on the side of the paper, whereas all your other page numbers are here. So to fix this, you have to move page numbers by hand in Word. Again, this is just going to be a very brief overview of how to do this. You'll follow the same instructions that you did for removing the Vita page number. You'll create that section break, unlink it from the previous section, etc. Once you have followed those instructions, you're going to use a text box to move your page number. So insert a text box, make sure it has no border, no fill color, that the text direction is vertical. Make sure that after you've typed in the page number, it's completely visible, and then just drag and drop it over to the side of the page where it belongs. That way, when you print it off, it looks like this. So that's how you move it. Remember, again, this is just a very quick overview of how to do it. If you need more detailed instructions for how to move your landscape page numbers, please download and use the Frequently Asked Questions document. It has much more information on how to do this. So that was the end of our formatting section. We are now on to part 3, the preliminary draft. At this point, you should have worked on your document. You've done as much formatting as you can. You've used our template. Hopefully you've read over our preparation guidelines document and frequently asked questions. Now, at this point, you're ready to go ahead and submit a preliminary draft of your thesis or your dissertation to the graduate school for a formatting check. So what happens is you would turn in a document, and I will look it over for your formatting, and then I will contact you to set up an appointment so that we can go over any revisions you have. This is extremely strongly recommended. It allows us to find your formatting errors early on so that you can fix it before you turn in your final documents. Because remember, final documents that have formatting errors cannot be accepted. So please, please plan to turn in a preliminary draft if at all possible. It is very strongly recommended for all students. When you are ready to turn it in, you will turn it in as a printed copy to the graduate school. We're located in the Plaza Norte building in Suite 2.210. Your preliminary draft does not need to be 100% complete because we do not read the content of your document. We're just looking at the formatting. So let's say you have 5 chapters, but you've only written 4 of them. Chapter 5 isn't done. That's okay. Go ahead and turn in your printed copy so that we can check your formatting. Preliminary drafts are typically submitted prior to your defense. The reason for this is that allows us to check your signature page before you go to your defense and before you get signatures on your signature page. Some of you will not be able to submit a printed copy prior to your defense. Sometimes the scheduling just doesn't work out with when the deadline is set. If you have to turn it in after your defense, that's okay, but still, please do plan to turn in a preliminary draft if possible. Your preliminary draft needs to be printed single-sided because the final copies are printed single-sided. So your preliminary draft mimics your final copies. It can be printed on a regular paper, and it does need to be submitted to the graduate school by the preliminary draft deadline, and deadlines are always posted on the graduate school website. Some of you will need more than one preliminary draft review. A lot of students ask me if that's okay, and it is. If you need more than one review, that is something that we will discuss at your preliminary draft appointment. I will let you know if I feel that you need a second review, and I'll recommend one to you. Some of you won't need a second review. It just depends on your document. So the basic process, keep this in mind for your preliminary draft, is that you will turn in a printed copy to the graduate school on or before the preliminary draft deadline. Within 1 to 3 days, I will go over your document and mark some revisions, and at that time, I will then contact you by phone or email to schedule an appointment to go over your revisions and to go over the final requirements and the deadlines. So you do not need to have an appointment to turn in your preliminary draft. The appointment comes later. Now, a common question that comes up about the preliminary draft is what happens if I'm out of town on the preliminary draft deadline and so I can't come in and turn in a draft in person to you? Please contact me. I'm the thesis dissertation officer. Send me an email, give me a call. We'll talk about your situation, and I'll provide instructions for how you should submit your preliminary draft. My contact information is here on the screen. I am typically more easily reached by email just due to the number of student appointments that I have. So just send me a quick message and let me know what's going on, and I'll let you know how to turn in a preliminary draft. So I will still be happy to review it for you, but you need to contact me first. Now, more information on the preliminary draft process, basically just a reminder of what the process is. Everything that we've discussed so far is on our website. So if you have questions on how to turn in your preliminary draft, please double check our website first and read over the process. Okay, so part 3 was really short about turning in your preliminary draft. We are now to part 4, submitting your final document. So at this point, you have written your document, you have worked on your formatting, you've turned in a preliminary draft and met with me to discuss any formatting revisions. You've had your defense, and you are now ready to go ahead and turn in your final requirements. So The things that you need to do for your final requirements are, number 1, submit 2 printed copies of your document to the graduate school with signed signature pages. We'll discuss that more in a minute. You also need to submit 1 electronic copy of your manuscript to the ProQuest website. Again, we'll talk about that more. And for doctoral candidates, you have a 3rd requirement. You need to complete the Survey of Earned Doctorates, the SED, online at the graduate school's website. This is not the same survey that you complete when you apply for graduation. Again, the final submission deadline is always posted on the graduate school website. We typically post it at least 1, maybe 2 semesters in advance so that you can plan ahead. So let's go ahead and talk about these individual requirements. Your printed copies have to be on a specific kind of paper. This is the final copy paper. That paper should meet these following requirements. It should be plain white, 100% cotton, acid-free, and the paper weight should be 20 or 24 pounds. Now, we do have a list of places where you can buy this paper available on our website. Keep in mind it is a little bit expensive, and sometimes, especially towards the end of the semester, it can be difficult to find, especially if you are buying it at the campus bookstore. So plan ahead for buying your paper. Make sure that you buy it before your defense because your signature pages must be printed on this paper. And most students get their signature pages signed at their defense. So plan to take 2 copies of your signature page to your defense printed on this final copy paper. Why do you need 2 copies of your signature page? Because you're turning in 2 copies of your thesis or dissertation, and each copy needs to have a signed signature page included with it. So make sure you get your paper ahead of time. If you have questions on that paper, make sure you look at the paper sources sheet on our website. You can also send me an email to verify that you got the right kind of paper. That's fine. You do have to do your electronic submission. That goes to the ProQuest website. The ProQuest submission is required for all students. ProQuest will publish your document. It makes it official. You have to do the ProQuest submission. A lot of students ask me that. It is mandatory. There is no fee to upload your thesis or dissertation to ProQuest, though some optional add-ons do have fees, which we'll discuss as we go through the process. ProQuest is really easy. You create an account and get logged in, and then ProQuest is going to walk you through the whole thing step by step, so just follow the on-screen instructions. With ProQuest, you do have to upload your document as a PDF, which will not be a problem for those of you using the LaTeX program, but if you're using Word, you will need to convert your document to a PDF. The best way to do it is to convert it through Word on your own computer. That typically ensures that your formatting is kept intact and creates the least problems. If you are not able to convert it on your own computer, you can use the conversion tool on the ProQuest website. It does work, though it does have a higher rate of errors that occur with this conversion tool, so please try to convert it on your own first. Once you have your PDF, you'll just, one of the steps on ProQuest is just to upload it. Please keep in mind that documents over 1,000 megabytes cannot be uploaded to ProQuest. This is a definite increase from before. Previously it was 250 megabytes, so you now have a much bigger file size that you can work with. Most students won't come anywhere near 1,000 megabytes. If you do happen to exceed their size limit, then send me an email and I'll provide you instructions on what to do. Another thing that you can purchase through ProQuest, the copyright. Remember when we went over the template, I mentioned that the copyright page was optional and that it would be purchased through ProQuest if you choose to get it. So through ProQuest, there is a $55 fee to get the copyright. That fee is just for ProQuest to do your paperwork for you. So you just tell them that you want them to file for a new copyright and they take care of the rest. If you don't want to get the copyright, that's fine. It's not required. You just need to delete the copyright page from your document. Now, when you are on the thesis dissertation section of our website, there is a ProQuest section, and one of the links will take you to more information on what ProQuest offers to you. They have a lot of documents available that you can read on their copyright registration. So if you're unsure about whether you want the copyright or not, please make sure to go to our website and read that copyright info. It'll give you a better idea of what the copyright means and whether it's appropriate for you. The other thing through ProQuest that comes with the fee are their bound copies. Now, these are bound copies for your personal use. And when I say personal use, I mean that these are for you, whereas the 2 printed copies that you turn into our office belong to the library. So you won't get them back. One of the printed copies you turn in is archived, and the other one is bound and put out onto the shelves for circulation so students can check them out. Which means, since you don't get them back, that if you would like a bound copy, you do have the option to order through ProQuest. You'll get an author discount, which basically means that the more copies you order, the price goes down per book. So they do start to take percentages off of the price. If you would like to order these bound copies, they're available 8 to 12 weeks after the end of the semester, so there is kind of a lengthy processing time. You are not required to order bound copies through ProQuest, though they do a very nice job with the binding. I do have an example copy of a ProQuest bound copy in my office, and I will show it to you during our preliminary draft appointment. However, if you would like to go through a different company, there are always places like FedEx or Staples that will do binding for you. They typically do the comb, coil, or tape binding, not the book style binding. You can also just do a Google search and see what other companies are out there. There are a lot of companies that will do thesis or dissertation binding. If you choose to go that route, just make sure that the company you choose is not publishing your document, but is just binding it. Because remember, ProQuest is going to publish your document. These pictures over here on the side are some examples of what the ProQuest bound copies look like. You'll notice that the difference between the ProQuest bound copies and the hard copies you turn into us are that obviously it's in book style binding and it is printed double-sided. That's just how ProQuest does it automatically, but they will also automatically print it in color. So if you have colored figures in your document, the ProQuest bound copies come out looking very nice. Now, for doctoral students only, not master's students, you also need to do the Survey of Earned Doctorates. The link is available on the thesis and dissertation webpage under doctoral requirements. You need to complete this online by the final deadline. The graduate school, basically me, can track who has completed the survey. So I do check the roster online to see who has it done. When you complete the survey, you will be sent a certificate of completion. Go ahead and forward your certificate of completion for the survey to me. As soon as I see that certificate, I know that you have completed the survey and I can mark it off of your final requirements. This survey typically takes about 20 to 30 minutes. At this time, they are only surveying students who get a Doctor of Philosophy, so a PhD. If you are getting a Doctor of Education, an EDD, you do not need to complete this survey. Okay, so those were the final requirements. Let's talk about some common questions that come up. So the one I hear most often is, is the final deadline firm or can I turn in my document late? Well, the answer is that the final deadline is firm. All final requirements must be received by 5 p.m. on the final deadline date. If you are not able to make this deadline for whatever reason, you need to contact me immediately and let me know. Just remember, 5 p.m. on the final deadline. It is strict. Another common question is, what if one of my committee members is out of town? Do they have to sign my signature page? Yes, they do. If you have a committee member who is out of town, you need to mail at least 2 copies of your signature page printed on the final copy paper to get their original signature. Make sure you allow lots of time to receive your signature pages before the final deadline so that that does not hold you up from turning in your final requirements. I do recommend, if you have to mail your signature pages to a committee member, send more than 2 copies if you can. 4 or 5 is probably good. That way, if something happens to one of those copies, it's not a big deal. You've got some backup copies. So, for example, let's say you're at your defense and you're passing around your signature pages for signatures and someone spills coffee on them. It's not a big deal. You don't have to mail new copies to that committee member who is out of town to get their signature. You can just pull out your backup copies and go ahead and get those signed. Another one is, when should I defend my thesis or dissertation? The graduate school does not set a deadline for when you need to defend. We do recommend that you defend no later than 2 to 3 weeks before the final deadline, and that is due to the fact that most students have to make revisions to their document after they do their defense. So allow yourself time to make those revisions. Some students have just a couple of revisions and it doesn't take very much time at all. Other students have a couple weeks of revisions. So allow yourself at least 2 weeks between your defense and the final deadline. Now, once you've finished your defense, you've turned in all your final requirements, everything's all set, you are ready for graduation. Now, if you have questions about graduation, you need to go through graduation coordination, not through the graduate school. Graduation coordination is located in the registrar's office. You can look up their number on the directory on the UTSA website, or you can visit their website at the link on this page. They're very easy to work with, and they will be able to answer any of your questions about graduation. That includes your regalia, your tickets, everything like that. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that submitting your final thesis or dissertation does not guarantee graduation. In order to graduate, your degree audit has to go through and your final grades have to go through. So if you have questions on final grades, those need to be directed to your advisor or to your department. The graduate school does not assign your final grade. Sometimes it takes a little while for grades to roll, so keep that in mind. But like I said, if you have questions on final grades or anything like that, please go through your department or through your advisor. Some other resources that can help you out. There is What I Wish I'd Known, dissertation or thesis writing tips from those who have been there, done that. This is a free gift from Academic Ladder and the Academic Writing Club. You can access it at this link. Once you get there, just enter your email address and you have automatic access to the PDF. Basically, it's a document of advice from people who have already written their thesis or dissertation. A lot of students find it very helpful, so please feel free to take advantage of that. In addition, there is the Writing Center, which you can locate at utsa.edu/TWC, or the Graduate Student Learning Assistance in the TRC. Their link appears here on the screen right here at the bottom. They have a great resource for people who are working on their thesis or dissertation. It's a thesis dissertation support group, so please feel free to take advantage of that support as well. But also keep in mind that working with their thesis dissertation support group is not a substitute for turning in a preliminary draft to the graduate school for a formatting review. They're different services. And that's it. So thank you for watching this webinar. If you need to contact me with questions about the thesis or dissertation, here's my contact information. I can be reached at 210-458-6409 or at lauren.beaver@utsa.edu. Please try to schedule appointments in advance if you'd like to come in to meet with me. And then if you do have an appointment, I am in the Plaza Norte building, room 2.210. If you have any questions, just let me know, and thank you again for watching our webinar.